Hello and welcome to Bangladesh Feminist Oral History Project, an initiative by Bangladesh Feminist Archives. I'm Tanvir Anoy, an academic author, archivist, and activist, and I'm honored to host today's conversation. This project is dedicated to preserving the voices of feminists who have shaped and continue to shape feminist and social justice movements in Bangladesh. Through these conversations, we aim to document their journeys, challenges, and contributions, ensuring that their work is archived for future generations. For this episode, we are privileged to feature Dr. Samina Luthfa, an activist, researcher, playwright, and Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of Dhaka. Dr. Luthfa's work spans environmental justice movements, political ecology, labor rights, feminism, and media. She has extensively researched and written on environmental struggles, female apparel workers, and theater as a medium of resistance. She co-authored Vulnerable Empowerment Capabilities and Vulnerabilities of Female Garment Workers of Bangladesh and co-edited the Bangladesh Environmental Humanities Reader. Beyond academia, Dr. Luthfa is also a theater activist and playwright, having performed in and written numerous plays that challenge dominant narratives and center marginalized voices. Today, she will share her journey, her role in feminist activism, and how resistance takes shape through research, organizing, and performance. So, Dr. Luthfa, let's start with your personal journey. What first drew you to activism, and how did you develop your feminist consciousness?
Um, Thank you, Onoy, for having me in this conversation. Um, I think it was the year 2000 when there was millennium celebration in Bangladesh. As you can understand, it happened all over the world. However, in Bangladesh, especially in the University of Dhaka, where I was still a student back then, there was an incident where one female who came to celebrate the 31st night celebration in the university campus area was sexually abused and harassed for being present in a celebration which was in the middle of the night. So it was a harrowing experience for all of us because the next morning we all saw the photos of this woman being harassed by students of my university, and we were very upset, and we wanted to we could see that there was something which was not right about what happened to this woman. So it was right after that incident, students of Dhaka University, we started to protest, and we wanted justice for the woman who was abused. And this also was the starting point, or I would rather say it's not really, although it wasn't really the starting point, but maybe sort of a watershed moment for not using the photos of the victims of violence in newspapers. So only one or two newspapers back then used to, blur the face of the victim. However, most of the print newspapers showed the face of the victim. So it was actually also um, um, a protest or a resistance to stop that from happening. However, although we did form a kind of like a platform of students, general students who were against sexual violence against women in the campus and everywhere else as well, especially during the celebrations in Bangladesh, we were not very successful in, you know, bringing justice for that specific incident. However, I think this is when uh, as along with my co-workers and co-activists in the movement, realized that if we didn't speak out for our own rights of just to have a safe campus, it would be really difficult for women to come out and be visible in public sphere. So this is something which was the first activism for me. However, I think the consciousness that you call feminist consciousness, I was really not very conscious about whether it was feminist or not back then. However, we kind of felt that it was about our survival, about our mobility, about our visibility in the public sphere. So this was about right to survive, coexist. I think it was instilled in me through my readings in sociology, because I think by then I already graduated with from my bachelor's, and the readings that we have gone through during my bachelor degree, as well as where I grew up, and my mother and the surroundings. These are the major, I would say, agents who actually uh, helped me have what helped me find my way around about this consciousness. However, I think the word feminist understanding or feminist way of thinking, um, I realized it much later in my career, but I was already doing it. However, I didn't, do it as a feminist thing. I think that's where I would say that my mother was very important, because she always taught us, me and my sister, about how we need to have our own independent self. We need to do a lot of studies, and we need to be independent in terms of economic independence. So I think this is very important, and also how not to tolerate any kind of abuse, and not speak out, or this is something that my mother always has been teaching us throughout our childhood as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samina. That was a lovely answer. So you're deeply engaged in both academia and activism. How have these two roles shaped each other in your work?
Um, I think before 2000, I was mostly interested about academia. I knew that my way of going around about my career would be teaching. I knew it from the very first year of my bachelor studies. Uh, However, activism came in later, and it shaped in many forms how I look at my academic pursuit at this moment. Although I started out in 2000 about this specific protest that I mentioned earlier, but I started activism a little earlier, because I was involved with the National Committee to Protect Oil, Gas, and Mineral Resources, Power and Port. I used to be a volunteer when I was like a bachelor student, and we used to do a lot of, campaigning about why we should not agree to export our gas, and how Bangladeshi interests should be, um, regarded first before multinationals' interests in, extracting all gas and exporting it for their benefit. So this is something that has been shaping the way I look at world, and I look at how human environment relations should be shaped, and how our national energy policies and energy system need to think in terms of how to um, you know develop a kind of like a um, national interest rather than the interest of money and development. And also because I studied sociology, and I had very important teachers who were actually studying neoliberalism and development as a sort of like a critique of development discourses back in late 90s. So we had many teachers whose um, area of interests were in this sector. So that also shaped how I looked at the sort of, development of Bangladesh. And therefore, I think my activism and academia, academic life was kind of going together and shaping my worldview in terms of, thinking about nature, um, while we are thinking about development of human resources and mostly poor people, marginalized communities. And because this also comes out from my sociology background as well.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. Moving to the next question. You have worked extensively on labor rights, environmental justice, and grassroots mobilization. Could you share some of the most significant movements you have been part of?
Uh, Labor rights, yes, I can. There are so many moments that I can share. Specifically in terms of labor movement, I remember in 2014, 2013, when I came back to Bangladesh after my DPhil from Oxford, I was very upset with the incident at Tajrin fire, and I think I was angry because um, so many lives were lost, and it was sheer negligence from the owner's side. And these young people who were actually making profit for them were brutally killed, and the collapsible gates of each floor were found to be locked. And that's the reason why these women could not get out, these workers couldn't get out. So we did a lot of activism. We used to write. I wrote a play about Tajrin incident, and right after the play was staged. It was a street play. It was one or two shows, and right after that, Rana Plaza collapsed, and we went and did a lot of campaign um, 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 in the vicinity of Rana Plaza, so in Savar and Ashulia, in places like that. About 20 to 30 shows, and we used to go every day and do 2 to 3 shows and then come back. And it was all because we wanted to mobilize workers for um, uh, for achieving their rights, as well as so that we can ensure justice to Rana Plaza victims. I was involved in many sorts of things while I was also trying to study that specific Rana Plaza collapse incident. And then in 2014, what happened was the Tajrin Fashions owner, Delwar, he had another garment factory inside Dhaka city, which was in Badda. And uh, in that in that factory, there were the workers were, protesting for. I think they were um, demanding their pay, and there were other activists who were there. There was hunger strikes and things like that. So we were asked to go and do the play there to sort of, boost the morale of the workers who were hunger striking. And the day we were supposed to show this play, in the morning, someone called up and said that police was being, very repressive, and they were probably going to make all the workers go away from the factory premises. So we should not go because there might be violence. However, since I am a sort of like it's not the play only, but I am also an activist and a researcher who works on social justice, labor movement, and things like that. So I wanted to go anyways. So we went there, and with a few other activist friends that I found after going there, we were trying to send, water and saline and things like that to the hunger striking workers. However, the police did not let us, and they were not allowing us to get in, and they were asking me who I was and why I was there, things like that, because I could understand that they had instructions to, clear the area. But we kept on trying, and at one point, the police actually baton charged and manhandled us, and there were two other activists, female activists, who were also, beaten up by the police. And I was, trying to make a lot of um, noise because it was not right. And after that point, the owners' goons came in and they started to beat up the people who were with me, and they also did the same to me. So it was a huge moment for a university teacher being beaten up in the streets of Dhaka. It would have made a lot of stir, but the news was, the news vanished from all the media, and it was actually instructed by people from up above. So this happened, and also my PhD is actually on full body resistance, which is a movement of environmental justice, and where a community stopped and halted open pit mine from happening in Bangladesh. So it has been a very long struggle from 2006 till today. It continues. So people successfully stopped the mine from, being set up, which is a very interesting case in point, because in most cases in global south, um, these kind of extractive industries are perceived by the governments as a sort of development icon, a project which will bring foreign direct investment and much more to the government. So governments since then have tried to, reinsert the project into Bangladesh. However, it didn't happen. It didn't succeed. So this success, since it is kind of abnormal in terms of uh, the resist, like, because people resist really rarely, and when they do, it's also very rare that they succeed. So that's why this case was very interesting, and this is what I did an ethnography on, and my DPhil was on this specific movement. And I think working on full body movement actually taught me how, if people are resilient and they're resisting something in unison, then it's very likely that it might succeed. So this is something, because I know very minutely in detail how a successful movement happens. I think I can see the power of people, and that's very important as an academic as well as an activist, that I draw a lot of energy um, from that movement.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. Can you tell us, like, what are the major challenges feminist activists and grassroots organizers face in Bangladesh today?
Um, uh, it's a very different story. Like, it evolves. As anyone who studies social movement will tell you, that it evolves with the political opportunity structures. So whatever is the sort of regime, as the nature of the regime also impacts a lot on how the movements will mobilize. For example, in a more democratic country or society, you will see more movements coming up, and some will succeed, some will not. But people have a more open space of dissent, and protesting is not, not bad, or it's not illegal. However, in an under an authoritarian regime, it gets really difficult. When we were passing through this, like, 15 years of authoritarianism, or I'd rather say like 11 years, from 2014, we kind of saw that authoritarian regime, uh, gaining its power. And then we saw that it's very important that in authoritarian regime you will see that your dissent will be silenced, and there will be a lot of repression, and different kinds of repressive techniques will be used to stop resistance from mobilizing. However, um, what we saw in last July uprising is uh, the repertoire of repression is actually limited. So a regime cannot keep on improvising its repression techniques, but people can keep improvising to resist that repression, and to come around and to reclaim and to continuously bring new ways of resistance. And that's actually kind of created a sort of momentum in 2024, which we saw that overthrown authoritarian regime. However, at this moment, like 6 months from that from that very moment of ousting the authoritarian Hasina government, we saw that things didn't automatically uh, change into a democratic track. So democracy is something that you need to keep on practicing, and therefore mobilization and is not easy yet. So because there is not enough democratic practice in the society, and the system of the fascist regime remains, and the way we think and the cultural tools and weapons that the fascist regime used to kind of make everything linear and regressive remains intact in many places. So it's although it seems like a lot of people are making a lot of demands, and there's a lot of mobilization happening from many different corners. However, we need to remember that there is a difference between freedom of expression and that expression. If it infringes upon someone else's freedom, then it no longer remains a freedom. So what happens is, in Bangladesh, what we see now is kind of like a majoritarian rule, and sort of organized groups where they are actually using their numbers and their dominance over more marginalized cultural and ethnic and religious minorities, and also over women and other gender minorities, to project their opinions over them. So this is not a very democratic space at the moment. However, I think we need to remember that it's only achievable through practice and making things institutionalized more. So to have the rules of the game in place, to have a rule of law, so that everyone can have a safe, survival mechanism, so that their rights are not violated by other groups' interests. So this is something which is a tricky and quite a messy situation in Bangladesh. So there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of backlashes and conspiracy theories, and people seem to be mm, not really very calm. So people seem to be very restless, and because of this restlessness, and uh, there is a urge to gain power by any means, because people are, some groups are thinking that they need to achieve more power in this interim period, so that they can actually have a stake after during the election, so that they can improve their votes, and that has a lot of deteriorating effect on other people's exercise of freedom of expression, freedom of association, and even freedom to survive as a specific different minority group. So this is something which are major challenges, and also the fact that our um, law and order situation is not really good at the moment. So everyone's safety is at stake, and that's why that when safety is in general weak, then its impact or influence, specifically negative impact, is mostly on women and minoritized communities. So that's why people who are looking after or trying to voice the dissent from the minoritized communities will and are facing a lot of backlash and challenges. And it's like every day, so much of firefighting and damage control and things like that. So too many things are happening
Yeah.
to be able to cover everything.
And thank you so much for like being the fighter in this particular movement. We have been seeing you be like in front and doing like the most work, and we are really, really honored and like really appreciate your work. Do you want to like to expand a little bit on like what kind of like I would say the feminists of Bangladesh kind of like experiencing right now? Do you want to a little bit add to that?
Yeah, feminists, for example, at the moment, feminists or being Naribadi is actually a curse word. So it's almost like if you are, it's a tag, it's a stigma attached to it. So it's like you have to, in a sense, that in Bangladesh, if you want to do feminist work, you have to reclaim that word and make sure that people's survival, women's survival, women's own agency needs to be celebrated. And even for that very small tiny bit of space in the democratic arena, we need to really always keep on shouting out. And it's tough, and there is a lot of backlash because if you are a female who was involved in the July movement or not, or if you were at the other side of the spectrum, everyone is actually vulnerable. If you are coming from Jamaat or from BNP or other leftist or completely individual person, if you're being loud, uh, if you're trying to express your opinions in the public sphere, you are actually going to be very vulnerable, and you are going to be attacked. And there will be, especially cyberbullying is very rampant. Young children and old women as well. It's everyone is under threat, especially with gender minorities. It's even worse, and because even the 51% of the population, even though we are women, our rights are not there, and we have to fight for it every day, and almost like 3 or 4 times a day. But think about what is happening to the other minorities, and we cannot have anyone saying or supporting any of those people's rights. This is like really difficult times for because it seems like the works that we have done for the last 1 or 2 decades have been kind of lost in this kind of mob related pressures that are coming out from the majoritarian part of the society.
Yeah, indigenous rights, gender minority rights, they're all are in right now in trouble, right? And they're facing a lot of backlash. Thank you so much, Dr. Samina, for like highlighting that. So, my next question to you would be like you were a playwright and theater activist, and your work uses performance as a medium for social change. So, how did you become involved in theater, and what inspired you to use it as a form of activism?
Um, that's a tricky question because I think I started out in 1996 because I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to act on stage. However, later on, because in Bangladesh, there are theater groups which are kind of like following the group theater movement kind of a thing. So it's already a movement. The group required that they didn't have enough scripts. So they asked me to write some, and that's how it started out, that I started to write for stage. I didn't write too many plays, but it's like really few. Um, but what happened was, I think writing a play gives me a very different avenue um, to say the things that I cannot say in an academic article or in an academic text. I can work with emotions, I can work with things that are not really welcome in the academic arena. So things that I cannot say in an academic paper, I can say it in the theater, in the text of a play. And it also, I think it's also because I have written a piece on how art can help protests. So it has been quite evident throughout world history that uh, probably a photograph or a song um, can make the messages communicable to general masses, uh, which 100 speeches will not be able to communicate. So this is something that is very handy and useful in communicating um, difficult framings of the movement to people who easily understand if you use art as a form of communication. However, I do not always, intend to be a very, heavy messaging kind of a writer when I write plays. But obviously, the things that I wanted to say, the dreams that I have of a society um, where people are more equal, I think those emotions, those opinions are instilled in the play somehow. So that's a way for me to sort of use um, my writings in a way to help my activism, especially the play I talked about that I wrote after Katrin fire incident and later revised it after Rana Plaza happened. It was always staged in mostly in working class areas, in areas where garment workers reside. So I think that play, and there are a few other street plays which are very, message heavy, and it's easy to communicate kind of plays. But for stage plays, it's a bit arty, so it's kind of not really that clear.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. So can you share the impact of plays like Kona in challenging power structure and amplifying feminist narratives, if you can?
Okay. I think this is my most celebrated play. People like it really. I mean, I wrote it into it. Uh, I wrote it. It took a long time to write this play, um, but I wanted to project a persona uh, who is kind of like a dream for a woman who speaks up when she sees injustice, who speaks up for her own rights and for other people's rights, who is very much into nature and knows about nature, knows its intricate details. So she's a kind of like an ecofeminist herself, and then she also, um, you know, gives her life um, for the cause that she finds important. And I think Kona is, since it's not a historical character, it's a legend. What happens is when these kind of myths and legends are made, society has a reason to make these kind of things, right? Society wants to tell women that if you talk too much, your tongue will be severed. For example, in case of Kona, that's the story, right? Because she was too talkative, she spoke, and that's why her father-in-law made her husband sever her tongue. because she was obstinate. And by showing her journey and how such an injustice happened against her, I also try to sketch the dream woman who will speak out and resist and stick to her opinion despite all odds. And also that when her tongue was severed, we would expect that what she spoke of would be silenced. However, at the end of the drama, we would see that peasants start saying the botchons or the sayings that Connor wrote, and they murmur and they learn it. So even though she is not here, she was never actually, but the sayings or the proverbs stay for 1500 years or so. So that's another message, that if someone's voice is being silenced, it actually is not silenced. It continues, kind of like it very indirectly, it can remain. So I think it's a play that I perform the role as well. So it's a very long stretch relationship for me. I wrote it for it took me about 8 years to write it, and I have been performing since 2008. So it has been long, long time that I have stayed with her. So I think she has a profound effect on me. And the character has a profound effect on how my, activist life shaped.
Thank you, Dr. Samina, and thank you so much for writing and also playing Kona. So how do you see theater intersecting with feminist movements and community-based activism in Bangladesh? I know you have talked about, street plays and other stuff as well. Do you want to add more to this question?
I think my troupe, which is named Borthola, a performance space, we try to sort of always, be very vocal against injustices, and we use street play, we use forum theater, and various other conscientization techniques through drama, and bringing about, um, you know, or kind of like mobilizing public opinion for more liberal Bangladesh, a Bangladesh which is safe for women, um, where families are safe for women, where streets are safe for women, where different, workplaces are safe for women and everyone actually. So in that sense, it does intersect with activism a lot, and we do perform in many, protests and rallies. We have plays on Sundarban and how to save it. We had a play which is Honey Hunter, which is a child's, sort of um, a story where a child learns how to coexist and not to deplete or extract too much of the Sundarbans. And it's a play written in English, but it was later translated, and our group created like a musical, so that it's more communicative to children and their parents as well. So if you can bring kids to theater, you have a excellent avenue um, to create more sensible and responsible citizens for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. My next question to you would be, your research and activism often explore the dynamics of state, power, repression, and resistance. How have activists and communities navigated backlash while continuing their struggles?
Uh, it's very difficult in Bangladesh, because I have told you earlier that during the authoritarian rule, there was a lot of repression. Activists have given their lives. So many young kids were killed. However, when we see, like, for activists, cyberbullying and backlash in the cyberspace is something that you can probably still survive if you just ignore them. But I understand that for many women and young activists, it's not that easy, because what happens is there is an indirect effect. If there is too many things being said about you in the internet, then your family members might not actually want you to speak out anymore. They might discourage you or even control you so that you cannot go out. So this is something which is a major problem for young women activists, especially, and which is more evident after the July uprising, where when we have seen that the July women have been cyberbullied too often, and their parents and family members are not really happy to let them go again. So this is something which is a real threat, a problem. And in a country where you can lose your life over your opinion, you can go to jail for writing a poem, or you can go to jail for writing just one word in the Facebook, or get remands, or be enforced disappearance, victim of enforced disappearance, then it's tough that people would say things, and there is a lot of backlash. And especially from a very after July, it's a very different kind of um, group organized crimes, hate crimes that we are seeing. Um, uh, it's tough, but I think there are ways that you can sometimes circumvent some of it by having a very comfortable and safe family environment. If you have something like that, that will help you. A good group of friends, an activist friend circle who you can lean on when it's needed. Otherwise, it's a very lonely journey, I would say. You will find that yourself is the biggest discouragement. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it anymore. You become discouraged, you become depressed with all that is happening around you. However, if you think about how many lives were lost, you know that this is an opportunity that we should actually strive harder to gain some grounds that we lost.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. So what is your vision for the future of feminist activism in Bangladesh, particularly in the face of environmental crises, labor exploitation, and shrinking civic spaces?
um, I'm a very optimistic person. So even during the dark days of July, I still believe that things will be better. And see, things got better. So, in a sense, I always think that more women are visible in the public sphere. Women are trying to gain more footing in the political sphere, and which is a really welcome sight, because we want to see more women in mainstream politics, in leadership roles, and the sort of um, competition between boy within the boys clubs needs to be broken down. And there is a lot of talk about how women's spaces need to be made, and this is something I think is a very good sign. And women from all walks of life, they are trying to um, they're trying to have their voices heard as well. And it's not only the educated middle class women, but also working class women who are fighting for their wages, employment contracts, and things like that in garment industry. But particularly the most vulnerable parts are the women from rural areas who does not have a purchasing capacity. So this is the sort of biggest group of women uh, whose lot need to be improved in the next, I think, 5 or 10 years. Otherwise, we will still be lagging behind in terms of visibility, in terms of decision making, in terms of getting into leadership roles. I think this is something that women's politics, feminist politics should actually look out for, to make politics um, take into account the role of women. And I have said in numerous talks that political parties who does not support women's empowerment, emancipation, freedom, rights should not gain in elections. So women should actually um, mobilize in numbers, because there is a lot in numbers in the next 1 year or so. So it's important that we understand our rights, and we find out the political actors um, who are going to give us, or sort of like allow us, not bar us from having our rightful space in the political arena.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. Looking back on your journey, what are the key lessons or experiences that have shaped your activism and your scholarship?
Activism is, I think, the key points that is resilience, that you have to keep doing it. Small gains has to be, for small gains has to be celebrated, and they need to be kept in place so that they don't get lost. Um, a theory that I tried to sort of give in my thesis is about when you are actually fighting against a juggernaut, uh, small obstacles can actually slow it down, because a juggernaut can actually easily destroy big obstacles. But if you put small obstacles in its path, it will have to slow down a bit. So that's my learning um, in terms of activism. And in terms of academia, I think I'm still searching for my magnum opus moment, when I have written things that I really want to. For example, now I want to write about July uprising, because I have seen it from inside. So my experience, the things that the ways we, did took decisions to do things. These are important understanding, which will give insight to the future researchers. So something like that. So this is one project that I would really want to do. And also there are other things that probably come later, but I am not a person who sees too many years ahead. I see only, like 2 years from now. So I think taking small steps is important.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. So what strategies have been effective in sustaining long-term feminist and social movements, if you can say?
Sisterhood. If you find people who are like you need to remain in touch. You need to be in the same network, you need to talk, you need to share your experiences, and you need to keep this network rolling, and bringing more feminist people in this. So often, I'm not a very talkative person, but I'm not also very introvert. So what I want to do is to make sure that more women find their own space and voices, and the more empathy that we have for each other, uh, can we really do something positive.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. So finally, is there a particular story or experience that encapsulates that the essence of your work and the commitment to feminist and social justice movements?
um, I was born in a privileged family, where I was not barred from accessing education or anything, to be honest, for being a woman. My parents have always, kept our careers in front of us, and not, doing household chores or things like that. So they didn't um, shut down our opportunities. Uh, and For this reason, I think um, I can I can feel that there are ways to sort of encourage other women to keep going. And there are ways that you can make people take responsibilities. So when we look out for the future and what we see as feminist organizers or activists, um, I think it's this empathy and support system which works uh, much better. Did I lose your question right there? What was it? I think
I wanted to ask you any particular experience that you,
any so any particular, it's I think it's difficult to
or
point
a
to any
story.
particular, but you probably know that I had been very sick in 2021. I was diagnosed with a very rare autoimmune disease, which completely paralyzed me from shoulder down. So when I was in the ICU for, and I was ventilated and whatnot. So it was really bad. I was almost going to die. So everyone kind of was waiting for me to come back, and I was waiting for to return as well. And every moment was important. Every breath was important. I didn't know if I would be able to take the next one. But what kept me going was my daughter and my mother. So I think throughout my life, I have had a sort of, my roots are very important because it's my mother and my parents who always were very supportive, and the new family that I now have, my husband and my daughter, is kind of like my way to go beyond. So it's like I feel like that I'm like a tree which has sort of uh, has connection to the soil, as well as I can dream of um, going beyond um, and go towards the sky. However, I think those moments of resilience, the fact that I had to fight for every breath and I came back, is an important thing for me. Uh, I became more fearless, I think, because I have seen what it feels like, almost. So, and also I would want to mention one uh, event when I remember it was 2021's International Women's Day. It was 8th March, and my daughter wrote something for me, and someone read it out to me when I was in the ICU, and I felt that okay, so although she's my daughter, own blood and flesh, but she is part of the sisterhood. So I have actually been able to communicate the things that I wanted to communicate to the next generation, to my daughter. So I think that's a very good feeling that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Samina. Do you have any last words do you want to share with the audience?
Um, Last words is always want to remain hopeful of a better future, and the better future doesn't come automatically. You have to work for it and work very hard for it. So I hope that all my sisters out there would be able to gather the courage to fight for their own rights, and you know, and the footing that they need to keep going.
Dr. Samina, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights, and your vision with us today. Your work as a scholar, activist, and theater practitioner continues to inspire movements for gender justice, labor rights, and environmental resistance in Bangladesh. As part of Bangladesh Feminist Oral History Project, your voice will serve as a valuable research for future generations seeking to learn from and build upon these movements. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Bangladesh Feminist Archives YouTube channel for future episodes. Stay tuned for more conversations with feminists shaping Bangladesh's history and future. And thank you so much again, Dr. Samina Luthfa, and thank you all for being part of this journey.
Thank you, Noy.
Thank you.